Anyone have a thought? Maybe we talked about this yesterday. I don't know. Anyone have an idea? What do we do here? Foil, right? Foil. Okay. So when I foil, I am going to multiply secant times secant. Okay, what happens when I multiply something times itself? It's squared. So I'm going to have secant squared. And remember, we write it like this. Okay? All right, outsides. Insides. Last. What do you notice about the problem? These are going to cancel. All right, they're like terms, so they cancel. So now I have secant squared minus 1 over sine squared. So look on your colored sheet. Do you see anything on there that has a secant squared and a 1? Now it might have some other stuff in it too. But it should have a secant squared and a 1 in the same equation. What does it say? 1 plus tangent squared is secant squared. Right, now this colored sheet is yours. Right? So you can write on whatever you want. I would suggest that maybe at least now, this first one, that you write by this one underneath it or beside it or somewhere where you can, write tangent squared equals secant squared minus 1. Now, you see what I did? This is on the sheet. This is like law. Okay, it's a theorem, it's identity. I subtracted 1 from both sides and now it looks like this. Is it the same equation though, just written in a different order? Yes. So this is another fact. It's the same as this one, but if you want to add this one to your sheet, you can. All of the identities on your sheet can be rearranged. In this case, it's helpful to look at it like this because look what I have right here in my numerator. What is that? What's secant squared minus 1? Secant squared minus 1 equals what? Tan squared. So I'm going to take this guy and replace him with tan squared. Remember, my job is to simplify. So I'm trying to get things as condensed as I can. Now, what did I handwrite on the paper? There's only, oh wait, no, there's some more handwriting, I guess. But up in the top corner, what did I handwrite on the paper? Tangent equals sine over cosine. So I'm going to take this guy right here, and I'm going to rewrite him as sine squared over cosine squared. And what's happening to that? It is being divided by sine squared. So this guy right here, kids, I know this is hard. You are going to have to do this by yourself. We're going to practice and practice. So hang with me. Don't shut me off. This is sine squared over cosine squared. And I'm dividing it by sine squared. How do I divide by fractions? You had to do it on your test. You had to take something like 90 and divide it by a 4. What did you do? Instead of dividing it, you turned it into a multiplication. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as sine squared over cosine squared times 1 over sine squared. What's going to happen? I'm multiplying them now. What's going to happen? is going to cancel. And what am I going to be left with? 1 over cosine squared. And we should know what that is. What's 1 over cosine? Can't remember if it's on this. It's on your other sheet. It's not on this one. 1 over cosine is secant. Yep. So this is secant squared. Wow, that was a doozy. That was a doozy. Let's see what the next one holds. So let me go through those steps again. First thing, you FOIL. Remember, you get points for everything you do that's legit. Okay, don't be making stuff up. But if you FOIL, points. If you notice, oh, I like terms, points. Here's the tricky step. You have to recognize that secant squared minus 1 is tangent squared, and you're going to have your sheet, but you still have to recognize that. Then we change tangent into sine over cosine and cancel. Yeah, these are a handful. I promise you'll get better, but you'll only get better if you pay attention and practice. All right, let's try the next one. Take a look at it. If instead of sines and cosines, if we had numbers, just plain numbers, what would you do first? If you had to subtract 2 fractions, how in the world you can yawn in the middle of a trig identity, I do not know. This is exciting stuff. How do I subtract fractions? Common denominator. So I'm going to make my denominators match. Okay? So here we go. Before I write it all out, let's see. My common denominator is going to be both things. Would you agree with me, both of these? So this one needs a cosine. Don't forget, if you put it in the bottom, you have to put it in the top. This one needs a 1 minus sine. The denominator acts like a quantity. So put parentheses around this, 1 minus sine. And then that's what you're going to multiply by over here. Everybody still with me? I gave this one a cosine. I gave this one a 1 minus sine. So that is my denominator. So I'm going to leave it alone. That's my common denominator. Now let's put everything together on top. What do we got right here? What's this? Cosine squared. And remember, we write it like that. Okay, now watch your SIGNs. We have a negative sign times 1. Negative sign. We have a negative sign times a negative sign. Positive sine squared. All I did there was distribute. Remember, we do our trig exactly the same as we do regular math. So the first thing we did was got a common denominator. Now we distribute it. Okay? Now, this is where my heart just leaps for joy. Because look at what I have in my numerator. And who remembers from yesterday what that is? That's 1. That's 1. So now in my numerator, I have 1 minus sine. That makes 1 minus sine. And that's over cosine times 1 minus sine. Oh my gosh. What do you think's going to happen now? Now, won't these cancel? You can't cancel part of a parentheses, but you can cancel the whole thing if they match. Right? So what am I left with? On top, I'm left with 1. And on the bottom, I'm left with cosine. And this happened to us a minute ago on your orange sheet, which you're still allowed to use. On your orange sheet, what's 1 over cosine? Secant. So your answer is secant x. So look what you just did, you guys. Look at the original problem. And then look what it boiled down to. Crazy is right. Crazy. Okay. Number 4. Number 4 is easier than the ones we've been doing. Here's my suggestion to you. Rewrite the problem literally as a division. So the way it's written on the paper is cotan over cosecant. I would suggest that you write it out longhand like this, and you'll see why in a minute. I just think this makes it easier. So if you have a division, go ahead and write it as a divided by. Okay, now, what is cotangent? I can't remember if it's on your sheet, but you can add it. Cotangent is the reciprocal of the tangent. So if tangent is sine over cosine, then what's cotangent? Cosine over sine. And you can add that if you want to your sheet. So this is cosine over sine. Tangent is sine over cosine. That's written on your sheet. Cotangent's the reciprocal. So it'll be cosine over sine. And what's cosecant? This is on your other sheet. Cosecant is 1 over sine. Listen, if you don't have those memorized, get your orange sheet back out. It's 1 over sine. So this is divided by 1 over sine. Now I have a fraction divided by a fraction. What do I do? Keep, change, flip. So cosine over sine times sine over cosine, or sine over 1, I'm sorry, sine over 1. You notice anything? Cancel out the signs. And what are you left with? That big problem boiled down to cosine. You better go ahead and go. Boils down to cosine. She's going to help Paul cereal, so she's going to go move her car. All right, we okay? We're going to do one more. All right, one more. Number 5. Now, first of all, I have used the number 5, I used theta. If you don't like that, or you don't want to write that, make it an X. It's perfectly okay to change the theta into an X. So your problem looks like cosecant X divided by secant X. Alrighty? Now, using the one we just did as a model, see if you can get started. Even when it's not E period, I am E period, out in the hallway. Okay, what are you gonna do first? Go ahead, I'm not gonna tell you. This is our last problem, I promise. But I want you to do something on your own. So use the one we just did, which is right here, use it as a model. Mandatory, but I hope you rewrote your problem like this. I think it just helps so much to have those two things separated. Now Esti's getting out her orange sheet because she knows what's coming next. What's coming next is you got to figure out what is cosecant. What does cosecant equal? 1 over sine. It's the reciprocal of the sine. So cosecant is 1 over sine. What is secant? 1 divided by cosine. Okay? Now what's our next step? We have a fraction divided by a fraction, so we will keep, change, flip. Right? Now in our last problem, stuff canceled. I don't think anything's going to cancel here. So I am just going to be left with a cosine on the top and a sine on the bottom. Would you agree with that? What is cosine over sine? I invited you to write this on your sheet. Cosine over sine is cotangent. That's exactly right. That's cotangent. So again, written on the sheet is sine over cosine. That is tan. The reciprocal of tan is cotan. So if tangent is sine over cotan, or sine over cosine, then cotangent is cosine over sine. Right? All right. I promised I'd stop there, and I will. What I want to do real quickly before we are out of here. Eventually, we will be having a quiz over this, but it's a while down the road, and we will practice a lot.